Yeah, I know how you feel. I know. Yeah, I was in the same. My kid I stayed up all last night with my kid too. I know how you feel. Why don't you leave early today? That's the compassion part of empathy. Yes, I got to go. Anybody ever wants to talk? Randall Bernberg, Google me, write me. I generally get back in 24 hours. I'm there. Okay, thank you.
So, we have one last speaker before the panel discussion. Before we go to the speaker, there's one thing I wanted to say, because all the speakers who have spoken today, at the panel discussion, we want to ask you to come and stay here. So if there are many questions, and we can have a conversation, but not all the speakers know. So if you would like, at the end, you can come here and join the discussion. That's what I want to say first. And now I'm going to introduce Lukas Holter. You have seen him before at the beginning of this day, and how beautiful it is that he also is the last speaker. He is a global talent developer consultant, and he's helping in the medical research to use more positive psychology. And he's also a yoga teacher. And what he said yesterday was, I'm learning the yogis how to do research, and I learned the research how to apply yogi medical. So give a big hand for Lukas Holter.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Perfect. Lovely. So it's been a long day, wasn't it? So shall we do something about it to get a little bit out of our heads and thinking thing and like into the bodies? Beautiful. So we learned it this morning already, sitting straight. How about that? All right. And then first challenge to get into your body, do this. So you know the phone thing? Just like with 2 fingers. Oh, first thing, right? Are you thinking about the presentations before? No. Straight in the body. Perfect. We all got it? Okay, now comes the movement. The movement is moving your thumb to your right nostril and closing your right nostril. Looks good. And then you can, from here, get your ring finger on the other side. And then you can change and change. It's fun, isn't it? So, we all got it down so far? Then we can start. So you go, close your right nostril, and then you inhale through your left nostril. Change. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Change. Exhale left. So it's always exhale, then inhale on the same side. Change. Exhale on the other side. Inhale right. Change. Exhale. We all got it down. Perfect. So keep doing this. And you may close your eyes, still sit straight, and then start counting. On your inhale to 4. Change. Exhale 4. Inhale on 4. So everyone has a different rhythm. That's why everyone does it individually. Keep doing this for just a minute. Beautiful. And then when you exhale through your left nostril for the next time, then you may lower your hands, open your eyes, and maybe you noticed something. Maybe you noticed you were prolonging your breath, which is activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is you were using both nostrils, which is activating different brain areas. Maybe you also noticed that you were not that much into thinking about everything that was happening, being in the central executive part of your brain networks. So it all changed. You got a little bit into your body, into feeling your body. And that exercise you just did, that's yoga. You already did it. So one check for today. Perfect. So what is it I'm going to talk about today? So that was the practice. And now we move over to a little bit of theory. So I'm going to talk about what actually yoga is. Then we're going to look at parallels between yoga and positive psychology. And all day today, I was thinking like, yeah, check. I'm going to talk about this and this and this. So there's so many similarities. So we're going to have a look at that. And then I tell you a little bit about my work. So how do I try to apply positive psychology in the yoga places and the other way around? So what is yoga? When I'm in my hometown and I'm meeting friends or people I haven't met for a longer time, very often they're like, oh, Lukas, I've seen like on Facebook and Instagram you're doing this yoga stuff. That's really cool. I'd like to come. But, I'm just not bendy. I can't do this. Anyone thinking something similar, maybe? I mean, there's one perfect response you can always give, which is like, just because you never washed yourself, it's not really a reason not to start doing it. In a way you could apply that. However, that is showing a little bit the image yoga seems to have out there, which is really promoted by the media of overly skinny and bendy and maybe beautiful girls doing crazy pretzel poses on magazine covers and on Instagram and on Facebook, right? That's what we see. That's what we connect with yoga. And then it's no surprise. Guys saying like, oh no, I don't want to embarrass myself with all these beautiful girls. It's like, I'm not doing this. And then girls, the same way, we talked about not comparing yourself with others, right? You see those images and then you get into this, oh, yeah, so maybe I can do it, maybe not. But however, that is part of the perception. The other perception is kind of this, right? Yoga, it's like this ancient Indian mystic, something is about that, meditation, what is it? It's old, but I don't know. And it's all these bendy girls, so what is it? So what actually is it? So to understand what it is, you do have to go back in time a little bit and understand where it's coming from. So the very earliest records and scriptures, like paintings on walls, and then there was the very early first written documents were actually from the Indian people, and that was the Vedas, the Upanishads, so very old scriptures. And already there was the word yoga mentioned and the ideas of liberation and yogic philosophical ideas. And then there was a lot of influence from Hinduism, from Jaivanism, from Buddhism, later from Tantra, and then later, when there was the British in India, like all the yoga stuff was also suppressed a little bit. And then there was a lot of Western body culture coming over in form of bodybuilding and gymnastics. And that actually shaped a lot of what we're doing today in the yoga studios as well. So what you got to understand, it's been very many different influences, and it changed over time drastically. So the question then remains, what is yoga? What is the common thing we can talk about when you talk about yoga? And when you go to a yoga studio and you ask the people, so you're moving all the time. So what is the difference between gymnastics and yoga now? What is it? And it's like, oh, there's all this philosophy behind it. It's a way of life. It's really different. And then you dig a little bit deeper. Yeah, so what is it? What's behind it? Like who created that? And sooner or later you will hear the answer, it's all in the sutras of Patanjali. So that is the one most important scripture. So what is that? So we can call it's the common ground of the yoga philosophy. So it's just one of the texts, the very many different yoga styles we're drawing from, and the very many different traditions and very many teachers, and it's so diverse. What do you guess how many yoga styles are out there these days? How many? What, 50? Hundreds? Yeah, it's definitely in the hundreds. So that is different yoga styles. So when you go, so what is yoga? It's so hard to tell. It's been evolving ever since. However, they all somehow refer back to the Yoga Sutras. So we can, philosophy-wise and from the ideas, we can say that is the common ground everyone agrees on. And interesting about it, it's been compiled around 400 after Christ. And the author is actually unknown. It's Patanjali is the name, but they don't know anything about that guy. It's a collection of 195 sutras or aphorisms, so it's really short sentences. And what it does, it really gives a manual of how to apply or what to do in order to apply all this philosophy which has been there. So it's really like a companion and putting everything into an actual manual on what to do. And that has been the main reference of all the main teachers which have been in India and then passed it down to teachers in Europe, and they pass it down and everyone passes it down. However, the idea stays there. That guy, that beautiful guy on the left, that is when I did my yoga teacher training in India, he always had the philosophy classes. We're sitting there on the floor and we're always kind of falling asleep because you're sleep deprived and it's really exhausting, like doing every day so much yoga and sitting and listening and meditation. And he always had these philosophy classes. And I never forget because he was repeating it so many times. So why do you do yoga? What's the reason to do yoga? And he always had it really simple, to find out, who am I? And we heard that a lot today, right? Your authentic self in spirituality. And then when we dig together now a little bit into the Yoga Sutras, so what is actually there? How is it defined in these texts? It says, yoga is the progressive settling of the mind into silence. So that is Yoga Sutra number 2. Number 3, when the mind is settled, we are established in our own essential state, which is unbounded consciousness. And again, that connects a lot to what we heard with the spirituality, connecting to something bigger. And number 4, our essential nature is usually overshadowed by the activities of the mind. And that is what we heard a lot today as well, right? Somehow in the way, you gotta calm down and then move on from there and eventually connect to something bigger. So if we put the question once more, what actually is yoga? And now it makes a little bit more sense as well. It's derived from the Sanskrit word yuj, which is coming from unity or joining. So joining yourself somehow with something bigger. It's an evolving system since ever. It has always been and it always will be. So there is not one clear lineage where we can say this actually is the traditional yoga. It's just many streams which have been developed by the time. And what we can agree on, it's a mind-body system to rediscover our essential state, our authentic self, what we talked about before. Now we know what yoga is, right? Is that a little bit different of what you thought before? Maybe? Maybe. Okay. Parallels between yoga and psychology. And I put psychology here and not positive psychology for a reason, because we are talking almost a little bit deficit-oriented. Is that okay, the positive psychology thing? So what Patanjali did back then, it's really a thorough investigation of the mind and how it works. So they had concepts back then, and it's so amazing to read about them because it seems like it's still so applicable today. So he's talking about in the Yoga Sutras about 5 hindrances of your development of yourself. And the first one is called avidya, ignorance, misconception. And that is the misconception we heard already today, is that you are identifying with your own thoughts. And if you're doing that, it is like you are in a prison and you don't even notice you are, so you can't break out. So it's a form of ignorance. And that is the main hindrance there is. You are identifying with your thought. It's very often mentioned in the sutras, like if the seer and the things which are seen are not being divided. Right? If you can divide the seer from that what is being seen, then you're not in that state. Okay, and how can that look like? And I try to remember your quote, Vicky. Letting go of who you are supposed to be. Letting go of your ego, shaping up this ego persona, is not helping you in your development. The next one, overly being attached to things and people, pointing out in greed as well. may seem like happiness in the short run. However, it is not helping you on a spiritual path in the longer way. And the same with hatred and being negative. It may feel good in the short run to talk negative about someone else. At the same time, if you think about Barbara Fredrickson, broaden and build theory as well, whenever you're like in this negative kind of state, you're not open for new developments, for new things, and can't develop really. And then the last one, anxiety. They call it the fear of death as well. And that is pretty much not accepting that me and you are impermanent. Everyone is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. And not accepting that can also keep you in a state of anxiety. And again, it's all in line with like all this research. Whenever you're in a state of anxiety, you get that narrowed view, fight or flight, and you're not open. When you're like meditating, you don't get into nice, relaxed states which open you up for new ideas and new insights. Anybody into neuroscience in here? Awesome. So some might be familiar with the brain network theories. I find that amazingly remarkable. So default mode network, that is the one which is active when you're ruminating. People with depression and anxiety disorders, they have an overly active default mode network. And the other one, central executive network, we've been in that a lot today, right? When you're like processing, when you're doing stuff, when you're really thinking about things. And the salience network really correlates to the SIA we heard before. So that is the part of the brain which is there to direct your attention, which decides, okay, is that information, no matter if it's a body sensation, if it's an emotion, or if it's other thoughts that are coming up, what is salient, what is most important for me, and there I decide. And all the practice, all the contemporary practices, there, in my opinion, are all about strengthening that salience network, that SIA, that capability of consciously directing your attention where you want it to be at the right time. And how does it work? Fortunately, Patanjali was describing us the manual, how to do this. So what is the yogic way to go about it? And it has 8 limbs. And the first one is the outer world, the ethics. Most prominent one, ahimsa, non-violence. Maybe some of you have heard about that. Or truthfulness, not stealing. So basically, it's recommendations how to be nice to each other. And that is really important if you want to be in a kind of positive state, also relating to others, which can help you on the longer run to, just your mental state to then reach deeper states of meditations and insights. Again, if you're like in conflict with other people, that's putting your body into a state which is not open. So it makes complete sense. Next one, the inner world. So observing the inside. And we heard a lot about compassion today. And that is what it's about. Like, it's accepting yourself who you are. You can also look at it as a mindset towards yourself. So one is accepting and another one is discipline. How can you shape your habits? Or you can think of it as mindset towards yourself, right? There is fixed mindset, growth mindset. And that is pretty much about adopting a growth mindset and working on your mindset and being aware of what is happening on the inside. Finally, we are there. Yoga, right? Isn't yoga like this moving? Yes, there is posture. And in the sutras, there's one sutra which talks about posture. And that is, are you still doing it? Sitting straight? Oh. Oof, it's late, I know. However, they noticed back then already how important to incorporate your body. Your body, we had the mind-body connection today as well, right? Body is a very important part on every journey. Breathing, pranayama, and you did that successfully already. And maybe it made you feel like a little bit better, a little bit more grounded straight away. And it is really the bridge between your body and your mind, right? Is the breathing. When you feel agitated, you breathe faster. When you're calm, you breathe slower. And the yogis found out very, very early, and that is in the very early texts, that you can, it works, it's like reverse engineering, right? So they start breathing slower and more consciously, and that then affects your body, and that then affects your mind. Then we have 3 different states of meditation. And I don't need to talk much about that. We all know that meditation is helpful. We all know the research about it. It's just about doing it and creating some habits. So what I always recommend in my workshops and teachings, just 1 minute a day. Start with 1 minute a day and make that a habit. Put your timer on, make it 1 minute, and from there you can develop. And then lastly, oneness, samadhi. I can't talk much about the experience of that. However, that is this feeling of oneness, or what might happen to you. So what's important here to notice is the first 5 are things you can actively and consciously do. And then the last 3 ones, including meditation. That's nothing you do. I'm sitting there and meditating, right? That's something you let go, you accept, you surrender. And then eventually amazing stuff may happen. And looking at those, aren't they all positive psychology interventions, all by itself? That's all we talked about today. I was like, all day, this is like exactly what it is. So we can connect it to the PERMA model. We can also, anybody has ever been on a yoga retreat? Almost everyone. So isn't a yoga retreat broaden and build theory on steroids? Right? You're there, all you do is you connect with beautiful people, you take time for yourself, you exercise, you eat healthy, you talk about nice things, you talk about growth, you have really deep connections. And like after a week of this yoga retreat, you're just like flying out there and you're like, oh, this is amazing. So this is how it can work and how it works. And this is how it worked for me. Like why I stuck with yoga, I started like 12 years ago. And the reason was a hip injury actually. And then I started going there, I noticed it's good for my hip. And then I noticed, actually, whenever I leave the yoga class, I really feel good. It was this intervention where I noticed it's making me feel better. And that made me keeping going there. Oh, we still got time. Amazing. So what is it I'm doing with that? I see, and we had it in the introduction, on the one hand, yoga, it's actually crazy. When I do my workshops and presentations and I ask, who of you knows positive psychology? It's like half of them who raise their hands. Like in Germany, we had it, like in Germany it's more the grumpy people, so maybe they're not that open to all this stuff. However, it's not really there in Germany. So I personally see yoga as this kind of Trojan horse. Like everyone knows yoga, but people don't know positive psychology. So for me, yoga is kind of a vehicle to bring people, sneak into some positive psychology ideas and interventions. And there is so many similarities. So what I did, I just renamed the yoga class. I used to teach from like yoga flow to yoga meets positive psychology. And what I do then there, just like we did today, we're sitting there in the beginning, I have a little bit of a talk, and then I structure my classes around gratitude, acceptance, character strengths, and you know all these interventions, like the little meditations and the reflection things you can do. You can also have them work together in pairs and share things, what they like about each other in terms of acceptance. So there's all these amazing things, and then you can do like the postures. It's like, the warrior, and there's really like how can you embody your strengths? Or there's like back bends where you say, okay, opening up your heart and surrendering. So you can really embody what you're talking about, and that can be very, very powerful. And then at the very end, you have them lie down and relax and reflect on that as well. And people love it. And it really helps like all those people out there, possibly us including, like who are so much in their rational minds all the time. It's like, okay, there's like the yogic ideas, at the same time is all proven by rigid research. And by the way, there is a lot of research about yoga. Did you know? I just looked on PubMed last week, and there's 5,600 publications, 2018, on meditation, and 5,100 on yoga. I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I was writing my master's thesis in psychology back then on yoga as well. And it's amazing. There's so much research. At the same time, I personally think you don't really need the research, right? Like we've seen it. Like every single part of yoga is helping. So why the heck shouldn't it all work together? And I think that's one of the big problems they face. Like in yoga research, everything is confounded so badly. It's like so many impacts. We have 100 yoga styles. So how can you say yoga works? However, even if you like change it so bad, check it out. There's a lot of amazing research. Today is psychology in practice. That's why I was not talking about the research bit so much. Then what I do, presentations and workshops on yoga, on meditation, and I frame them yoga and psychology, or yoga and the psychology of motivation, and then I have like half a day with them, and I sneak in all these positive psychology interventions and have them meditate and then connect, say nice things to each other, contemplate about their strengths, and all this, and a lot of more of this neuroscience stuff. People really like it. People really love it. When you sit down and you're like, okay, this is your salience network, and now you close your eyes and try if you can notice the difference. And that's what we did this morning in the starting meditation, right? We started off thinking, central executive brain, then maybe thoughts come up from the default mode network. However, whenever you direct your attention, that's the salience network. And you can make it tangible and get the connection between like the theory and the practice. I am working part-time at a company called ERT in clinical research, and I also try to get as much positive psychology interventions in there. What I lately did was these tincture bells, these Tibetan tincture bells. So I put them in all of the meeting rooms with an instruction of how you can start your meetings mindfully, and also some instruction or like some notice why meditation is good for you. So any possible way I can sneak stuff in, I just do. The other one is pretty obvious. So that was Tuesday this week. That was the end of a little yoga class I was also giving at ERT, at my company. And it's amazing. Like I have managers coming in there, and it's really like this. I just see people changing, and I see people, and I get the feedback. There's like, yeah, it is really helping me. Perfect. So what the message I'd like to give you is connecting your body, your heart, your brain, and maybe for yourself, rethinking if yoga might be a way for you to implement some of these positive psychology interventions. And when you're going to a yoga studio or trying out yoga classes, please at least give it 3 tries. Yoga is a lot like coaching, right? There is no certification. There is all kinds of teachers out there. There's all kinds of styles, so maybe it doesn't fit you. So my recommendation is try as many until you find one which suits you. And go there with the intention of acceptance, of learning. For me personally as well, when I go to yoga classes and it's a horrible teacher and nothing works as it's supposed to be, and I hate the voice, and I hate the exercises, and they do everything wrong, that is like the classes where I get the most of it, because that's the biggest challenge of like stepping back. No, you let go. No, you let go. Get out of your thing. Get out of your patterns. Get out of your ego thing. Let go. And so whatever yoga class you're taking, you can always take this mindful approach of you trying to be the observer, the seer, and everything else may happen. Who's going? Ah! Perfect. So it's also about getting a little bit out of your comfort zone. Are you ready to go out of your comfort zone? Not really. Let's sit up straight once more. And let's finish this thing with one arm. You inhale deeply. You may close your eyes. You exhale completely. Then you inhale for one arm. Thank you. It's no time for questions, I guess, but we'll all be at the drinks, right?
Thank you very much.